Anyway, here's President Bush also another soundbite from President Bush talking about what a great guy Dick Cheney was. Number 3, please.
I appreciate this chance to say a few words about a man I was proud to call my vice president and my friend. Though not a happy assignment, I do consider it an easy one because there was so much to like and admire about Dick Cheney. Dick was a stoical man, and I doubt he left his life with any complaints about the time given to him or its end. He was also a grateful man, grateful above all for 3 loyal, loving women who shared in his journey. As I quickly discovered in 2000, when you choose one Cheney, you get 4.
Very true. Everything the president said about his running mate as vice president were true. Liz Cheney spoke, and we're not going to show you any of the grandkids because I've made it a policy not to cry anymore on the show this year. And I cried at the grandkids. I was on the subway listening. I cried on the subway. Not a good look. So go watch it yourself. But here's Liz Cheney, of course, a former congresswoman, and boy, a fierce defender of her dad. Liz Cheney, number 4, please.
He was inspired to service by President Kennedy. Dick Cheney became a Republican. But he knew that bonds of party must always yield to the single bond we share as Americans. For him, a choice between defense of the Constitution and defense of your political party was no choice at all. When he was vice president, he wrote in this letter to all of his grandchildren, "As you grow, you will come to understand the sacrifices that each generation makes to preserve freedom and democracy for future generations. And you will assume the important responsibilities of citizens in our society. I ask of you as my grandchildren what I asked of my daughters, that you always strive in your lives to do what is right."
All right, I'll say one more thing, and then I'd love both Amber and Hyma, I'd love for you all to just say what you wish about Cheney or about today. So Dick Cheney, even more than George W. Bush, reviled by the left when he was in the White House for 8 years. Reviled, Darth Vader, and just the worst things possible said about him. And then his daughter attacked by the right after her participation in the January 6 hearings. I don't think the two of them disagreed about a thing. So in other words, you got the same two people with the same principles and the same policy positions, and yet from the Bush era, the last Republican president before Donald Trump, through the Trump era, Donald Trump so distorting the Republican Party, so changing the party, so changing the values of the party that one Cheney's reviled by the left, and then the other Cheney reviled by the right, even though they're virtually the same. And again, it's just a prism through which to view just how much the party has changed. Amber, thoughts on Dick Cheney, the day's events, my obsession with not talking about that other story, whatever you wish.
Sure. Well, I will talk about this separate from politics. Our co-founder and publisher, Neil Patel, worked for Dick Cheney for all 8 years of the Bush presidency, and he wrote an op-ed for us at the Daily Caller about his time working for him, and I found it to be very insightful. And Neil's views, I think, on foreign policy have changed probably quite a bit since he worked for Mr. Cheney, but still really respected the man. And he talks about how great of a boss he was, obviously very stoic, had a very dark sense of humor, and he recalled this story of when the Democrats and the media started calling him Darth Vader, that Neil found this incredibly well done replica Darth Vader mask, and he bought it for Dick Cheney. And not only did he take a picture in the mask because he actually quite liked the nickname, but on one occasion he wore it into the Oval Office for a meeting with the president and really got great enjoyment out of it. And he also talks a little bit about his background, being raised in a lower middle class family, getting the opportunity to go to Yale, not doing so well.
Only flunked out twice.
Ending up doing blue collar work, but then eventually becoming this larger than life statesman. And it's really a testament to the opportunity that exists in America for people to really rise above their station and make the best out of opportunities. And so I found that very inspiring.
Is Neil's piece available free behind a paywall?
It's free.
It's free. All right. Everybody should go read it. I didn't know about it, and I'm going to go read it. Hyma, one of the reasons I believe that Bush aide argued against picking Dick Cheney, and one of the controversies that arose when President Bush picked him was I think he was either the only one or one of three House members who voted against making Dr. King's birthday a holiday.
Yeah.
And that's the guy who was celebrated today on MSNBC. Again, just testament to how much has changed since he was in office. Again, you already told your fabulous story about meeting the vice president, but anything else you want to share or comment on?
Yeah, I mean, look, and I think history, as we know, is long, and we've learned from these big historical figures that while their lives may be inspiring, and to Amber's point, in so many ways, Vice President Dick Cheney's life is the quintessential American dream. But a lot of these giants do have past actions or things that they themselves have expressed regret for, and so I don't want to spend much time talking about that. But what we saw today, as someone who is a student of politics and just loves the theater of politics, and it's almost like watching, the royal wedding. When I woke up this morning, they were covering it so closely. But it was sort of a vantage point into a bygone era, and one that's slipping away from us every day. And so in some ways it's bittersweet, but it was really nice to see former President George W. Bush and see Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Dan Quayle and all these folk in the same room for one mission, celebrating one person who has done so much. You can critique him and critique what he's done for this country down to each policy decision, but you cannot say that he has not done a lot for this country from Congress all the way through being vice president. And it was so nice to watch that. And the backdrop of that, and Amber, I hate to talk about the politics of it, but not having the current president there, not having the current vice president there, that was sad. And when we have these moments, this is the second moment in the last year that the president, the vice president chose not to be a part of, or were disinvited, and that was George H.W. Bush, and fortunately for history, they were a part of Jimmy Carter's funeral. But look, I think this just shows that there is a chasm across this country that's growing, and when the president has an opportunity to close that chasm, he chooses to widen it, and that's sad. And I think this was a moment where he and the vice president could have stood up and brought this country together a bit more on the back of Dick Cheney, knowing what he expressed and what he thought of this country, and how much he and his family have given to this country to keep it together. And so I thought that was a missed opportunity. But to your point, it was a beautiful ceremony. Watching his grandkids, watching Liz Cheney, there were moments where you were chuckling and moments where you were crying, and moments where you felt hopeful again about, to Amber's point, the American dream. If Dick Cheney can do it, anybody can do it.
All right. Our first sponsor tonight is our good friends at Cozy Earth, who are having a sale. Prices so low, they're insane. 40% off Cozy Earth products, the whole site, everything on there. Go to cozyearth.com, promo code 2-way. The bubble cuddle blanket, the jogger pants that I wear nearly every day. I'm going to a black tie event tomorrow night. I'm just this close to wearing my Cozy Earth pants. I'm not sure I'll get away with it there, but otherwise you can wear them anywhere. The pajama set, the sheets, the towels so soft. NFL Sunday, you'll just grab your Cozy Earth towels and just spread them around on the sofa or the lazy boy and just sleep with them, cuddle up with them. They're very soft. All this available now on the site. Crazy Black Friday sale. Stock up for gifts or stuff for yourself. CozyEarth.com, promo code 2-way. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. Thank you for your attention to that matter. Go buy a bunch of stuff and get a little pop-up. How did you learn about Cozy Earth? Mark told you about Cozy Earth.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the 2-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and 2-way tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.